August 7th, 2006. This is Diehard Gamer Radio, episode 12.
You are listening to Diehard Gamer Radio, the source for off-mainstream video game news and topics. Now your hosts, Murdock, Brian, and John.
Well, welcome back to Diehard Gamer Radio. I am one of your hosts, Murdock, and always I have Brian, John, and Steve.
Right.
Put that pot down!
Ran through that intro pretty fast, didn't you?
Yeah, I have to.
It's all right, make with the video games.
Okay, so we're going to go straight into our news bits as we have the Goofy Patrol here.
Oh, we didn't screw anything up last time?
Well, I'm sure we did. We actually got an email from Keyken, which I failed to print out, but it was detailing what what was on the disc with the Sega CD when you first got it.
Oh, when you first got it, the initial Sega CD release CD bundle thing. Was it not Silpheed? Is that what he's telling us?
No, it wasn't Silpheed.
No.
That wasn't a packet. So our first topic is, and this is kind of big news, the E3 as we know it is no more. So what's...
Gone.
Well,
they got an F for failure.
Yeah.
They got an F for spending too much frickin' money.
Yeah. Frickin' A.
Did they actually get an E? They
didn't get an F, they got an E 3 times.
So what happened was that from my understanding, it was the ESA decided to scale down E3 quite a bit, and now it's no longer the huge-ass trade show. It is now a more personable event, and it will be invite-only and consist of about 5,000 people.
You mean like it was at the beginning?
Yeah.
That's going to sell games, you know.
Well, part of the reason was that the amount of money that all these companies spent on E3, they weren't seeing any returns from it. They were spending more than what they were getting back. Plus, E3 started to become not about the games, but about booth babes and a lot of hype.
Well, or at least not about the journalists. I mean, so many people who wanted to get in to, see this stuff for the first time, but,
I blame it on
have
G4 Tech
with
TV.
5 readers.
Yeah.
Well, and my personal theory is that's one of the E3 organizers got spurned by a booth babe or something, and they're just, bitter.
Yeah.
I blame it on G4 Tech TV.
That's actually kind of a valid point because a lot of the media didn't help, and also the fact that there was a shitload of people going to E3 and they had nothing to do with the video game industry at all.
Daddy got him a ticket.
Like, for example, the booth babes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although I think the best thing I've read about this whole E3 closing is, won't anybody think of the booth babes?
Well, yes.
that's why we have
somehow
the Penny
I don't
Arcade
think that
Expo,
the
which
booth babes will
probably
go
become
away.
the new E3 at the rate it's going.
Well, yeah, it's
Hey.
probably going to be bigger than E3 at the rate it's going.
Well,
hey,
it's
we need to
becoming
rent
the
out
popular-
Seattle for this.
It's becoming the popular side of it, where people go to play the games instead of where journalists go to, developers go to network and all that stuff.
Yeah.
There's
It's
also
always
a
been
whole
that
thing
way.
that, GDC is probably going to be a lot bigger this next one.
So we'll see what happens come 2007. So next news bit, more patent madness. In a nutshell, a no-name company from Texas has decided to sue Microsoft and Nintendo for some of the technologies in controllers.
I think it's specific to like wireless controllers and some stuff
Wireless
like that.
controllers, analog functionality. There's a list of about 9 or 10 complaints from what I saw in Kotaku.
So they ran out of spending capital and they need more.
Yeah.
No, this is one of those patent companies that doesn't actually make
Do
anything.
anything, they just patent crap.
And there's a very good reason for that, because if you actually make something, well, then you can be sued. But if you don't make anything and you're just sitting on all these patents, there's...
Then you wait till somebody else makes it and you've got the patent and then you sue them.
Yeah.
Why should we do all the work? We could sue you.
And in looking at
Essentially.
looking at the patents, the first one I saw was like for an analog controller, and it was dated like 4 years after the Nintendo 64 came out. So it's
That'll hold up well.
That's
A loser is you.
Yeah.
Well, that's why I think it has that the wireless part is important. I think that's also why they're not suing Sony yet. That's because Sony is not yet making a first-party wireless controller.
Yeah. So more than likely, I don't think anything's going to happen.
And all the other accessories, people don't have enough money for them to make it worth suing.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's hard to say, though. I mean, we've had some of these patent lawsuits just be absolutely crazy. The whole Aeolus and Microsoft thing was definitely one of those bits of idiocy.
SCO. I mean, 5 years running, and they got nothing still.
Yeah. So the patent system's broken, but we already knew that.
Well, no,
There's
pieces on the floor. There's actually on a related note, there was a post on, I think it was on Slashdot, on a like a bill by somebody who actually has influence in Congress, who wants to make it. What was it? They want to make it first to file instead of first to invent, which is pretty much the standard apparently in the rest of the world except for the U.S.
Yeah.
Works for me.
The whole EU system.
Yeah.
Well, if we could just have, the EU antitrust effort in the U.S., we'd probably be better off. But
it simplifies some things, though, but it also doesn't get around the whole problem that these process patents are just stupid on the face of it.
Well, yeah, and you also, would nice be have more experts who could look at a patent and go, this is the stupidest ever thing I've seen. Get you to the slapping machine.
Which is patented.
Yeah, but it's probably patented in Japan.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we got all sorts of treaties and such. Let us respect those.
Yeah,
for now. Go stealing people's slapping machine patents.
So next, Vic Ireland, who was the president of Working Designs, has decided to start up a new company called Gaijin Works, which is probably the worst name you could give any type of company at all.
That's pretty bad.
Especially if he's going to sell overseas.
Probably he picked up the pieces of Working Designs and said, hey, I can do this again, and come up with a stupider name than Working Designs. And hopefully, if he's going to do the same video game stuff, he will learn from his mistakes and not take like 10 years to release one game.
Gaijin Works. That's right up there with
Splaz!
It's
it's the same company. Remember, Spaz was Working Designs.
He's the
cream of the crop for
game company
names.
Does.
Yeah. That's awesome.
So, Vic, you might want to rethink that. So, next news bit is the PS3 announces Xbox 360 style achievement point system, and they call it entitlements.
I would like to register my vote for the stupidest ass label that you.
What are they selling land online?
No, they called up Vic Ireland and they asked him for a name.
I'm like, really? Seriously?
I just cleared this game and I won 30 entitlements. So,
yeah. Man,
so Sony yet again being original.
This is a great year for just Japanese game company names in general.
I suppose it would have been worse. They could have called them Wii's.
They could have called them Wii's. It's a great year for Japanese companies opening their mouths and comedic, just huge amounts of comedic value coming out of their mouths.
You don't want to see what the points look like.
And if the vice presidents of all these people didn't honor them and know that they, their jobs hung in the balance, they'd run right up to them and say, "Did you pull that out of your ass? That wasn't on the script."
I mean, seriously. Anytime these people open their mouths, they're just like, well, we're going to do this. And the entire press staff is like,
they're stunned.
How do you
Not stunned the way they wanted to be, but they're stunned.
They need to put one of those shot collars on all of the Sony VPs.
They do. It's like, well, I'd like to announce that. Oh, never mind. I got to do something else now.
No, they need the collars from Battle Royale. Is what they need. It's like every time they come up with a bad idea, just their head explodes.
VP from Sony exploded today. They make 17 this week.
Yes.
You're talking about the shot collars from the old Rutger Hauer prison movie, where you got too far away from your partner and boom.
What was that one called?
It blows me.
Rutger Hauer's prison movie. Rutger Hauer presents a prison movie.
Yes.
It wasn't anything worth remembering.
A prison story.
Was Kim Cattrall and she was naked?
No.
Well, just so long as Prison Server isn't based on it.
Oh, my God.
All right.
That's bizarre. I don't understand that at all.
So our next news bit is Mattel announces a CD and card-based game system called the Hyperscan. And what do we know about it? We saw it had like some sort of weird... it was like you opened up the system, it was like a waffle iron.
It plays a CD, and it is a CD-based system, but the interesting thing is it doesn't have a memory card like normal systems do. It actually has a save card that is something of like a credit card that you actually swipe over the top of it over an IR sensor.
Well, and you also can buy collectible cards to unlock things in the game. Like the example they were giving was an X-Men game. There was a fighting game, but it also had like 300 or some cards that you could buy separately and collect, and you could scan them into the system to get those characters in the game.
I got to give Mattel kudos for this because it's the perfect marketing campaign to get people to consistently buy stuff from you.
It'll either be perfect or it'll die.
Yeah,
horribly.
it's either going to be extremely popular or the stupidest thing, in the face of children. But I got to feel in Mattel knows how to market things. They're going to make it work.
Well, and it looks like it's a game system that's about on the level of maybe the Saturn?
Almost, maybe. I wouldn't even say Saturn, but they're close.
Well, I bet it's going to be higher resolution, and it's probably going to support high def or something, but it looks like it's going to be a 2D system.
I highly doubt they're going to have any kind of big-name games, or it's going to be anything worth
I think they're just going to make games that are based around you having to collect things to open up more things.
It's obvious their market is between about 8 and 16.
Well,
I think
how do we capture the Magic the Gathering crowd and the video game crowd in one fell swoop?
No, it's the next generation of the Magic the Gathering crowd.
So there's going to be like a Barbie game, and you have to buy cards to get
clothes
and furniture. You laugh.
I would never buy any cards.
Yeah, well...
Nintendo tried this a little while back, didn't they, with a card swipe, I seem to remember.
That thing was different, though, because that was actually got entire old games that were on the card.
Yeah, I think this system is basically the same concept as that, except you're just getting items. You're not getting a whole game for it, and it allows you to customize things. It'll be great for like a CCG-based kind of game, but... I don't know if you have to buy like cards to get clothes for your Barbie.
Yeah,
that's going to be a tough sell.
It's going to be like $70, right? I mean,
it's going to be fairly cheap.
Low cost market on this thing.
Yeah, this system is not. It doesn't look like it's really.
Well, and is there really anything to stop people from like, well, I bought all these cards and you bought all these cards, so I'm just going to use your cards and you can use my cards?
I highly doubt they're going to have anything to really block that.
They're not showing.
Well, the
system is about $50 too cheap to worry about that.
Yeah. Well, it'd be interesting to find out if you could just like print cards off the internet that somebody else scanned.
Well, that's entirely possible. If it's an IR sensor, if it's just like reading barcodes,
you can probably get your own magnetic stripe reader and create your own cards. Yeah.
Well, is it a stripe reader or is it a barcode reader?
We don't know.
I bet it's going to be a barcode reader because the magnetic stripe stuff is too expensive. That might be like their save card or something.
That might be okay.
But I bet the collectible cards are just going to be paper.
So, LaserJet to the rescue.
Yeah. So next, the PS3 is in full production mode according to Sony, which means that they may have made one or two.
Let me make a note that we made a note earlier about Sony saying something about entitlements. So, if you put a lot of faith in that.
Haven't they already shipped out like 20,000 developer systems or something? I seem to remember seeing an announcement, something like that.
Heard.
Yeah.
From Sony?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you know what that means. Hey, here's a PS2 development kit. Just kind of work up from there.
You say grain of salt. This is more like a couple pound bags. This is
what they used to pay Roman centurions in.
Well, I mean, if you figure it's coming out in November or something, they really do have to start now even to not have enough.
Yeah.
Start now to lack the numbers you need.
Kids, you might want to start on that disappointment now and avoid the rush.
Anticlimactic starts now.
So next, our next news bit is we want to wish a happy 20th anniversary to Castlevania.
So it'll be able to drink next year?
Yes.
Yeah.
This one goes out to you, Richter.
Most of us here, or maybe all of us here, are big Castlevania fans.
Oh, yeah.
I've never actually played one.
Shut up, man.
What?
You're a fan.
What?
Oh, okay, then. I love Castlevania.
Okay, all right.
See, we're all fans. One big, happy fandom family.
Now, John, serious or not, have you played a Castlevania game?
Nope, never played one.
You're fired. Even Steve has played a Castlevania game.
I think the last Castlevania bait was Simon's Quest.
Yeah.
Yes, but you played one. That's all that matters.
When I was a kid, I had a Genesis, man.
There was a Castlevania on the Genesis.
Bloodlines.
Well, apparently I didn't play it.
It's never too late.
We'll have to fix that.
Well, he wasn't getting the propaganda from Nintendo Power of, here's your Castlevania. Actually,
Nestor tells me that I need to go into the secret passage. I better listen to him because, there's an animated Howard Lincoln there.
Nestor tells me to go in the secret passages to hide from Howard Lincoln.
Oh, my God. Why do I remember that?
You are programmed well.
Yeah. So, Castlevania, thanks for all the great games. And
games to come.
Yeah, and those Nintendo 64 games I'll forget about. Next news bit, Atlas picks up Rule of Rose for September release. Now, this game has actually been getting a little controversy from Sony. What it is that you play as a young girl, about, I'd say, 14, 15 years old.
Definitely a teenager.
Yeah, definitely lolly here.
Teeny bopper.
And what happens is that she's an orphan, and she ends up going to this house, and there's like a bunch of other like really young girls that have this society called the Rule of Rose, and they're very creepy and do very, very strange things.
So they're like a sorority.
Yeah, kind of.
Is this like the Skulls?
No.
There's some really interesting trailers for this game. I mean, it looks like it's got an interesting atmosphere, interesting cinematics to it. But I can't, for the life of me, you, anybody, Rose here, tell what the hell this game actually is about.
It is
it's like Monster House.
I know it's supposed to be like survival horror something or other, but man,
if you fail, you get stuck with a prick.
There isn't a lot of information on this game yet. The only real big information that we got is that we actually got an American developer to bring this game, and according to Atlas's press release, they are bringing the game unedited, and they are not going to dub it into English. They are going to keep the original Japanese voice. Well, the original Japanese track, which basically was British voice actors.
Wow. Although, isn't there also some weirdness for this, that this was like developed by Sony Computer Entertainment Japan, and SCEA is passing on it?
Yeah. In fact, they were mentioning to third-party companies that it was strongly advised that they do not bring this game out in this country.
Huh.
And they've done enough weird shit this year already, so it's probably better they pass on it.
Yeah, this game is definitely getting an M for mature.
Well, and I understand there's supposed to be some kind of like multiple endings thing going on, and part of it is what position you end up with in the social hierarchy for this Rule of Rose thing. And
yeah, it's going to be
sounds really unique.
I mean, Rule of Rose looks like a very interesting game. It'd probably be worth trying out, at least for me, only because I don't particularly care for survival horror type games.
But you do like lolly.
And it's got a plus already, the fact that it's coming over unedited, nothing changed. It's just going to be direct to us.
Yeah, they're keeping the soundtrack. They're just going to edit.
Save us import dollars.
Yeah, they're going to localize it, which basically, according to Atlas, they're just going to put it in English. Seems to be the only real change that they're going to make to it. So,
and the gameplay visuals from this, looks like this is going to be a really pretty game.
Yeah.
For a PS2 game, of course.
But that's really a bonus for Atlas, too.
So we'll watch out for that and see what happens. But it is a very interesting choice on Atlas to bring it out. Our last news bit is that moving game saves from the PS2 to the PS3 will require a outside adapter.
Which, okay, so I didn't put a memory port on it. But honestly, I'm just happy there is an option. It's not like the 360 where they go, you know those Xbox games? Yeah, you can play those again.
Yeah, the ones you drop 30 and 40 hours on driving.
Oh, I got to play through Jetgun Radio. Oh, wait, it's not on the emulator.
Aww. Are you in Europe?
Damn you, Live Arcade.
So I'm just happy there is an option.
Yeah. So that is it for our news bits. Next, we're going to go into our game topic, and we actually have a pretty big one here, is why do we need regions anymore for systems? Now, over on a website called Ozymandias.com, there was basically a discussion from a person who works at Microsoft for development on the Xbox 360, and he was discussing import games. And one of the things he said about people modifying systems is that, okay, well, if you're modifying systems to play pirated games, we don't particularly care for that, which is an obvious response. But when he spoke about actually people importing legitimate games and then playing them on a modified system, he's like, well, I don't really like the way you're doing that. But he never gave any real explanation as to why he felt that way.
They also made a distinction between a mod chip and a modded system, though. A lot of people get a mod chip so they can play import games, whereas you have a modded system so you can play pirated games or homebrews or downloaded ROMs.
Technically it's the same chip, though. I mean, when you did PS1, when the PS1 mod came out, like the Phantom mod chip, you could put it in and play either legitimate ones or pirated games.
Or burned games.
It wasn't any real difference between the chips.
Yeah, but that's related to the whole. I can break into your house with a hammer, but that doesn't mean a hammer is, just for breaking into people's houses. There was a thing, too, I could have swore, unless I dreamt it, there was a thing where somebody was talking about that Bill Gates was actually playing with the PSP, and somebody had shown him a modded PSP, and he's like, wow, that's actually pretty cool. Modding's nice. We just have a hard time making our business model work with it. If you can find a way to make mods with our without breaking, I think it was, if you can make mods work without breaking our business model, it's really cool.
Yeah.
And that's what it boils down to. We don't need it.
Yeah.
It's the companies that need it. Yeah. Well, they don't need it. They want it so they can, increase their little things, profit margins, revenue.
Yeah, I mean, the question has been, why have we ever needed it?
Yeah.
And it's always been about being able to segregate markets and control prices in those markets for the companies that are distributing the games. They want to be able to charge more to people because they live in a different country.
Yeah. Now,
which screws you and me.
Well, there have been some somewhat legitimate reasons for region locking. Part of it being that there are just some games that they just don't want coming out in this country for whatever reason, whether it's religious overtones or if it's,
that should never
content.
dictate
That's
our
just
market.
like
That's true,
censorship,
but that's,
though.
Yeah,
I mean, that's just they don't sell it in our market.
Yeah,
then.
I
Don't need the
understand
hardware
that
protection.
is one of the reasons why they've done that. That's one of the reasons.
Otherwise, the U.S. market will just be flooded with, tentacle porn.
Yeah.
Well.
It's really that's just an excuse that they're putting out, too, so they don't have to say, because we want to charge you more money. I mean, it's any answer you can give that people will roll their eyes at, so long as it's, we do it because we want to charge you more money.
And nobody knows.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no
It's
one
like
knows.
the elephant in the room when this discussion happens is, well, some games are appropriate for the U.S. market. We don't think some will sell, and we charge you more money. Blah, 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 blah. So.
Yeah. And there's the only technical reason for it, and one of the other ones is the standard marketing thing that they like to be able to do an advertising campaign and a big release, and they don't want people bringing it out over because it might screw up their sales graph.
Yeah, that.
But
damn the graph!
Hissy fit when Valkyrie Profile 2, when all that news came out. It's like, oh my god, what are you doing?
The only technical reason that's ever been there is the NTSC PAL distinction, and when they had to do different games for that.
Mm-hmm.
But if that was really the reason why we would have NTSC and PAL,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I would buy it.
And now with region locking of the systems, and this is just for the benefit of the audience, but basically what it is that if you buy a normal game system, a vanilla system, it can only play games from that region. So if you buy a United States system, it'll only play games from the States. And you either have to place a chip inside your system to make it work for games outside of your country.
Or pay somebody else to.
Or pay someone else to, or buy an import system.
Yeah.
Those
Import
basically
systems are always going to cost you about a third more, and then you're going to have to factor in the pricing for the import games. It's going to cost you more because you're paying the import tax and the tax on top of that.
And that's assuming you can even find a mod chip for your system.
Yeah.
Yeah. And some systems easier to mod than others.
Thanks to the internet, it's not as hard as it seems.
Yes. But some systems harder than others to mod.
It's always hard in the beginning. You give any
PlayStation 2,
system about a
hard to
year,
mod.
year and a half, it's readily available.
Yeah. So, do we? But back to topic. Do we even need regions anymore? I mean,
Apparently not with Sony.
We never have needed them.
well,
And they're finally,
that is
Sony's
true.
leading the pack and saying, we don't need this now anymore.
Well, that's
It's
what
just-
they say with the PlayStation 3. They say, oh, we're not going to
We'll see if it happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although we've
It's happened
seen
with the
the
PSP.
handheld market that we've seen in the handheld market that they can get by without doing the region locks, and we've seen that Sony has done it with the PSP. So it's
well, as far as
possible they'll
games are
continue
concerned, they
with the
still
PSP.
region lock the videos.
And
but
plus, you figure, okay, the Nintendo DS being like, you know, a really, really well-selling system in pretty much all markets, not region locked, and Nintendo has not had any problem selling games on it.
And you can say the same thing about the PSP, which
Yes,
is
the
actually selling better in the U.S. than the DS is.
Yeah.
And the same response works.
Yeah, I import games on my PSP all the time, and
of course it's selling better over here because they've got systems to give us. Nintendo can't keep up with their systems locally, let alone worldwide.
He is right. I have not seen a Nintendo DS in a store for quite a while.
I'm amazed there was any for launch. What are you talking about? I don't think England got half of theirs, did they?
It's England.
Well, they got hijacked on the way there.
Yeah. Again, who cares? Play your soccer.
No, that was a PlayStation, wasn't it? Yeah,
No,
the
that
light
was those
PSP.
Play your soccer and drink your warm beer.
Yeah. Well, it was a DS Lights.
So we've never needed regions, but it's just what was the reasoning, or do we even know the reasoning why we had regions to begin with?
To make more money.
Yeah.
Well,
it's the same.
I mean,
there's the NES.
Yeah.
Well, the PAL and NTSC thing makes sense. I mean,
well, yeah, but I mean,
that was the only exception I can see. But that was just between here and England,
was just
you
more
know.
of a
Well, no,
hardware
but
Here in
also
Europe, rather.
with Japan right there. I mean, Japan has a long tradition of charging their citizens more for the same stuff. And one of the big things that they try and prevent with region locking is reverse importing. They don't want the Japanese to be able to buy cheaper U.S. consoles and import them back either.
Yeah, true.
it's kind of like anime.
Yeah.
I can pay $60 for my 2-episode DVD.
Or you can wait for it to come out in this country and pay get 5 episodes for $20.
Well, yeah, sometimes 5 episodes.
Well, that's
on the teaser first disc, yes.
That cocktail disc.
It's that whole Columbia marketing campaign there.
It's like, here's 5, then 4, then no.
You only have to buy 5 more at regular price. $69.99.
It's like, okay, you can fit 26 episodes between 6 discs while you're stretching it out to 8.
So they can fit 2 on the last one.
Yeah. So,
well, thankfully now that if you can just manage to wait long enough, they're doing those thin pack sets, and they are putting stuff on fewer discs and coming out with releases eventually.
Welcome to Diehard Anime Radio.
So that's it for our game topics. We only had just that one. So we're going to go right into our game discussion. We want to talk about the first video game to set our hearts on fire. In other words,
it burns. It burns.
Is that like a good thing or a bad thing? I don't even know what that
means.
We want to talk about the games that made us gamers. The games that we just saw on
fired the imagination.
Yeah. So who do we want to start with?
I really liked Joust.
But was that the very first game that made you want to that you knew that, okay, I'm going to be playing games for a very long time?
I don't think there was a single game like that. I just started playing them and never had a social life to distract me from them.
You know, I started playing the Atari when I was like 5 or 6. I don't even know if I understood what Hearts on Fire meant back then.
The very first game I actually remember playing is the Atari 2600 basketball game.
Yeah, but was it a game that really ignited the imagination?
Well, I mean,
made you love the game?
Well, I could say that about Combat on the Atari 2600, but it's just the single fact that I could whoop anybody's ass that I played that game with. And I took great pride in playing Combat, but the game wasn't by any standards that great. I just had mastered it because it was one of the few
I don't think it was like doing crystal meth for the first time. I think it's more like doing cigarettes. You smoke one, it wasn't so great. Okay, that's pretty good.
Overrated.
And now, this is... oh, man, I need another cigarette.
And that explains some of our gaming collections.
So this is what I'm saying.
Yeah, it does.
So there hasn't been a game for any of us that just stood out of all of them.
Well, I don't know about you. Yes, this is what I'm saying.
Well, I have a few.
Well... Then
a few? Then you don't have just one.
Well,
you don't have your pivotal
gaming
just
experience.
Okay,
so he
pivoted 3 times that year.
Okay, his gaming addiction's more like heroin. First you got to get it all the baggie, and then you got to put in the spoon.
Okay,
Steve. Somebody's been watching too much VH1.
Well, the game for me that really, really just made me just love video games, Space Harrier. I think for me, when I played that game for the first time, it's like, okay, yeah, this...
Yeah, but it's got a great soundtrack.
Welcome to the Fantasy Zone. Get ready.
Get ready.
So was there?
I know I was ready.
So was there ever a game that made you hate gaming?
Oh, there's been plenty.
I don't know. If we went back to like the arcade games and talked about things like Joust, of course, I loved Road Blasters. I played that.
Robotron 2084.
Oh god! Every time I went to the pizza joint, I played that game. Jesus, I love that game.
What's a pizza joint?
Yeah, well, there you have it.
It's
back when
where you take a thin
arcades.
crust and you put marijuana in it.
It's back when arcades actually existed in other places other than arcades. Yeah.
What's an arcade?
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
God damn! You know, I used to listen to this on my 45. Yeah, never mind.
Yeah. No, I remember those.
I remember walking to the arcade, listening to Electric Avenue. And,
on my cassette player, and don't say it! Don't say it!
the mini work CD.
Shut up, man! That was the first tape I ever bought.
there was a Sbarro's that had Tron. I played a lot of Tron, not the light cycle one, the other one.
Yeah,
the one
the
that had
spiders and the
Discotron.
tank.
Yeah, not Discotron. No, it was the one that had
With like the 4 different games.
a couple different games. You had
That one actually, yeah, that had the one disc game. It had the spider game. We had to get to the center of the spiders. Then you had the tank, and then the cycles. Yeah, that was a great game.
Discotron, however, I sucked at royally.
That was a hard game. I think I still have that on my television. Don't ask. It's an older system nobody knows about.
Thinking it probably didn't look as good as it did.
Oh
on the
God,
arcade.
no! Nothing looked good on that system, but it's all you had back in the day. So
Meteor Shower was pretty fun.
You want to talk about a game that looked bad on there? Try Donkey Kong. Oh God, that was horrid.
My first gaming memory is actually Utopia on the Intellivision.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember AD&D on there.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Great game.
I don't think we played anything but Meteor Shower.
My mom loves that game. I gave her my Intellivision just so you could play that game.
What was the trench one? That was like the really popular game for that system. You're like flying your ship down the trench and you'd blow the other ones up.
All Star Wars.
Well, yeah. Except, it's like this green trench thing.
Yeah. I vaguely remember that one, I think, too. Well, there was a knockoff of Star Wars that was just called Trench. It was just, which was totally unlike the Trench dodgeball game.
So, I mean...
one that really made me really want to play video games a lot was Super Dodgeball.
That is a great game.
I played that game forever.
One of the few I haven't got on the MVS yet.
That's a great game,
yeah.
But River City Ransom? No.
Renegade.
Battlezone.
I played Legend of Kage till my thumb.
Legend of Cage.
I played Battlezone until I couldn't see straight anymore from the vector graphics.
Well, that's because it was all 3D and you're like in this little thing that's like taking over your brain.
No, we're talking about the old one on the 2600, man.
I'm talking about the one that was in the arcade.
No, this was pre that. That one was actually great.
Well, it wasn't great for me.
Put colors on it and stuff, but I'm talking about the one where you had the vector graphics where you saw through triangles and squares that were supposed to be mountains and hills, and
that was
blew up another tank.
There was a vector version of Battlezone in the arcade too.
Yeah, I'm sure there was, but
I remember because I couldn't play because it was too short.
I think my family forked out the $30 or $40 for the cart back then.
Because it was like this gigantically tall cabinet, and I needed to have like my dad hold me up. So because even if I stood on like the little stools they had, I couldn't get high enough to look through the viewfinder to play.
You must be this tall to play this game.
Essentially.
I remember finding just this weekend, actually, I was moving stuff around and getting some systems out for my mom, and we were moving the Atari around, and I found a couple of packaged Atari games that literally had stickers on them for $39 and $49.99 for an Atari game, and that blew my mind. I was like, we paid how much back then?
Well, we pay that now?
Yeah, but I mean, look what we get now. I mean, it just shows how far we've come. It just, the games have always maintained that same price. It's just hard to believe. I mean, you can go to a garage sale now and pick up an Atari game.
Well, plus we also have, we pay the same amount, and a lot of the games probably the same percentage suck just as hard.
Well, I look at how much we paid back then, and I'm like, and we had a game crash because why?
Yeah,
that was a big part of it right there.
Yeah, the reason why was because Pepsi was making a fucking video game.
Yeah.
Hey, Captain Crunch on the Atari 2600. Can't imagine why there was a crash.
Yeah.
So, but in answer to your question, John, if there were any video games that made us hate video gaming in general, oh yeah, there's plenty. Oh,
Rise of the Robots. I wanted to go out and kill a robot myself.
What does that mean?
I'm not quite sure.
Number 5 is alive.
Quiet!
Not for long, it isn't. Yeah, there were a couple.
Number 5 is a can opener.
Yeah, there's a list. There's such a huge list of games that would make me, if I could physically hurt a video game.
Dude, it's the yin and yang of everything. You have to have bad so you can really appreciate the good games.
Yeah.
And justify paying as much as you paid.
Yeah.
I reviewed Burnout 3, or I'm going to review Burnout 3.
I will review Burnout 3.
Well, in the future, I will have. It's like future perfect.
He's getting his gaming DeLorean.
That's 1.22 gigawatts of Burnout
gaming
3.
goodness.
So, Burnout 3, it's a racing game. It's kind of like, it's a racing game.
It's every great racing game where you wish you could crash into things.
Well, yes, and actually,
you can crash into most racing games.
Well, yeah. It's basically, you think of pole position, and you're like, wow, I wish I could run that guy off the road. Well, now you can. And you get rewarded for it, too.
You should totally do the Burnout 4 comparison thing.
Well, we will. We definitely need to do that. So, Burnout 3, really great racer. Physics are really good. Lots of cars. No licensed cars, but lots of cars. And you'll probably be able to pick out which ones they are. They just don't have decals on them. You start out with, normal, like pretty much every racer that's got a ton of cars. You start out with the compact cars that do like 2 miles per hour. And then you move up to the sports cars and the coupes and the, whatever's.
Supers.
Yeah. It's got a couple different game modes. There's the what do they call that? The Burnout Grand Prix or whatever they call it, the World competition.
World Grand Prix.
That's like the story mode version of Burnout 3.
Burnout 3, the World Tour.
It is, essentially. You've got 3 different continents that you can race on. Each continent has 5 or 6 racetracks, and then you play different variations on those racetracks because they kind of
forward and backwards,
shuffle around how it goes and everything like that.
Interconnect them.
Yeah. The other modes are there's the crash mode, where basically your job is to get over a certain amount of money, which is based on the amount of damage that you did to the other cars and whatever stunt you're trying to do. And then there's there's the road rage one, where your goal really is to knock off as many NPC guys off the road as possible in a certain amount of time, or that sort of thing.
Take them down.
Yeah, pretty much. When you're racing, when you knock somebody off the thing, or if you do really cool, like if you drift through and learn how to drift and all that sort of thing, you get boost, and that's basically your nitro.
Can make the difference faster between the end of the race.
Well, right, and
Well, it's not just boost; it's also traction in a can.
Well, yeah, it is. It is.
You also get boost from racing on the opposing side of the lanes too.
There's a lot of different ways to do it. Near misses give you boost. All sorts of stuff like that. Basically, driving like a madman gives you boost. And when you crash, every time you knock somebody out, your little boost meter gets bigger. And when you die,
multiply all the way up to 4.
Up to 4, yep. And when you die or when you crash, it'll chop like 1/4 off that thing. So you don't want to crash too much because you want to keep your boost up for those important times when you're 30 seconds ahead. Which brings us to the things I don't like about this game. The rubber banding is awful. I mean, you can be a really good racer, and I know Brian says he's gotten very far ahead of the NPC racers. I have rarely gotten more than 3 or 4 seconds ahead of the racers.
It's rare, but once in a while.
The best I've seen is like about 30 seconds.
Yeah.
And even on some of our best runs ever.
Whereas the NPC guys, if you let the first player go out ahead, one of the things that you really need to do when you're playing like the higher level races is you got to get up there and you got to hit the first and second. You have to wreck the first and second place people right away. Because otherwise, if you let those guys just battle it out, they'll get 2-3 minutes ahead of you, and you're never going to catch them.
If you can tie them up, they tie all the other racers up, and then that gives you the time to get ahead. That's how I get so far ahead.
They're not so bad in the default races. It's those like one-on-one duels where the AI will just get ahead of you and,
and you're
never
just
see them again.
Yep. Or if you've just got one of those races where you just can't avoid hitting everything that comes your way. And it gets those get really frustrating because for some reason
stop and reset.
You just can't not hit things. Which
go into the light, Mary.
Exactly.
You mean lights because there's two of them,
right?
And you go right between them.
Well, and one of the things that's encourages you to actually drive on the opposite side of the road. It's easier to see the oncoming cars with their headlights on than it is to see the running and brake lights of the people that you're going behind. So. Now, obviously this game is a little bit older. It's about 2 years old now, and so there was a sequel to this.
On 3 now?
Pretty close.
Almost, yeah.
It came out in the fall, like a couple years ago. So.
It was like a half a year after the Xbox came out, I believe. It was really.
It was more than that. It was more than that.
Because
maybe a year.
Because the Burnout 1 and 2 are actually Xbox games. They came out way before.
Yeah.
Burnout 3, I think we're coming up on 3 years now.
Yeah, I think it came out in 2000. End of 2004
a little over
a
year maybe after the system was out.
Yeah, because it was last year we got Burnout 4, so it was the year before that we got Burnout 3. So about 3 years into the Xbox life cycle.
Wow, okay.
So basically what happened, the original company that made this made Burnout 3 and 1 and 2 and whatever, right?
Well, Criterion had done 1, 2, and 3, but a few months before 3 released, EA bought them out.
Correct.
Which was really good because the production value from Burnout 2 to Burnout 3 was
huge.
Oh,
but Burnout
That's
3
the difference of capital.
Burnout 3 did really well. Burnout 3 got a lot of attention. It has it has an RIAA inspired soundtrack. I mean, it's got all these big bands. These bands that were going to be big got onto this thing and now are big. And so, you hear a lot of stuff that songs from bands you hadn't heard of at the time that are now, mainstream bands.
One of the big bonuses on this, too, is it was one of those games where you could go put your songs from your Xbox system on it and switch to your own soundtrack if you don't like them, too. So that was a great way to play your music.
And we should mention, while Brian was saying it, that the multiplayer online for this is really good, except for the fact that you have to use EA's online thing instead of the normal Xbox.
Yeah, that's a big downer.
But, I mean, once you get into the game, it is really fun to play it against other people. So they put out this game. It was majority, most of it was finished before EA bought them. So, there was that sort of kind of almost indie feel where they are actually, doing something original and cool and everything. EA buys them. They do really well. Burnout 4 starts coming out the next year. And the difference between Burnout 3 and Burnout 4 is light and day.
Yeah.
If you can only buy one of these games, throw out and set on fire Burnout 4 because Burnout 3 is so much better of a game than Burnout 4.
Which is just bizarre because, I mean, so much of it is the same, but it's just like these little tweaks they made that just completely ruined the
Which
game.
I'm totally convinced is to make it easier for people to play. Because Burnout 3, there's a learning curve. There's a fairly, it's not horribly steep, but it's a fairly steep learning curve where you have to learn how to do things like drift into oncoming traffic. If you can't learn to drift, it does. It does.
But it's pretty much the difference between not knowing how to drive and knowing how to drive.
Yeah, I mean,
once you know how to drive, you get a lot better.
It's all about being able to make small movements with the controller that's make the difference between you slamming into the oncoming semi and skidding right in front of it as you're drifting and hitting the opposite wall and bouncing off it. In Burnout 4, you don't have that problem because if it's traffic going the same way that you are, you just go right through them. And where's the challenge in that? There is no challenge in that.
You hit them without penalty.
As a matter of fact, there's a game mode where you actually have to run through traffic that's going the same direction that you are, and hit a certain number of time in a certain number of cars.
It just took away the realism of driving.
Yeah, I mean, it took away a lot of the challenge of it. Also, I personally didn't like the soundtrack as much on Burnout 4. It's minor quibbles. You can put in your own songs, I guess. And I also really didn't like the look as much. I actually liked the look of Burnout 3 better.
I think Burnout 4 does have better graphics to it, but it's a lot harder in some places, especially when they're trying to do some of the dusk stuff, to see any of the oncoming traffic. Which is like, well, I'd actually trade a little bit of this style and flair for better clarity.
Well, yeah.
There were ways around that in 3, though. I mean, when I was coming over a hill, I went from the inside the cockpit view to out in front of the car view, and I was able to see things faster.
That's another thing to say, too, is that in Burnout 3, I don't know about Burnout 3, I never tried it, but in Burnout 3, if you wanted to actually have a more challenging race, you just do a first person. Because first person was like 75% of a different experience in racing in that game than
you were the grill.
I mean, you were, and you were like, and so when you were coming over hills in first person, it's a lot harder to go, well, let's see, oh, there's part of a car, like you basically see over the hill when you see over the hill. So that was a lot more difficult for me. But you're right, actually, in some of the races in Burnout 3, they actually would do interesting obfuscation things that would make the race harder for you, like making you drive into the sunset. And you would actually get the lens flares would prevent you from seeing the oncoming headlights. It's like, ooh, that's evil.
Doesn't work very well in real life.
No.
I totaled the vehicle that way.
They also changed the scoring system in Burnout 4 so that actually getting through the race quickly was no longer enough to get a perfect score. And that whole thing where when you'd have to go through the time attack and not only get under the time, but also do enough silly, stupid things that slowed you down getting through that time attack to get a perfect score.
It really was, yeah. Even though the driving was easier, the challenge was harder.
Well, I don't know, it was harder, but it was really frustrating.
It was almost pointless. It's like it's a racing game where getting there first isn't important. It's like,
and that's like the first core thing in a racing game. So
what would you rate this, Steve?
Burnout 3 is one of my favorite games ever and is my favorite racing game ever. So I would give it a 4.75.
And only because
it doesn't get the full 5, but
nothing's ever going to get a 5.
Well, I can't make something really be that perfect, I don't think it exists. It's an unobtainable 5.
Well, first you have to start making games and then
I wrote a Lego game once. I redid the intro to Space Quest 1 in the logo.
Did that get a perfect 5?
It had like the whole CG in the beginning where the ship crashes on the planet. We did that in logo.
That sound like a 5.5.
Well,
or a 5 out of 5.
It was at then.
That'd be 5.5 for our AP
it looked
class.
it looked almost as good as the actual Space Quest 1. So
4.75 out of 5.
Correct.
Okay.
And with a small note to completely ignore Burnout Revenge.
Yeah.
And what rating would you give that?
Oh, that's like a 2.
That's a -1. That's
well, I mean, there's some enjoyment to be had if you just like borrow it from somebody just to see like, wow, that's really pointless.
Oh, do you remember how bad they broke the crash mode too? It's like they took one of the best parts of Burnout 3 and just completely made it suck.
we totally didn't mention that point. Is when you actually crashed, you can actually hold down one of the buttons, and you can direct your car to hit other cars around you, the other players.
Which is key if you get knocked out by one of your opponents, and you can direct your crash back towards him and take him out with you.
You'll actually get boost for that, and you won't get penalized as much. Plus, the person's not getting ahead of you. On the other hand, if you are behind, you don't want to let that slow-mo thing go because you're getting further and further behind.
That's another thing you didn't mention, too, is all those little things you do during the race add up, and some of those things that add up actually unlock cars and other tracks.
There's lots of unlockable stuff. And
you really feel like you're making progress as you play the game.
There are many things for you to get.
Lots of little goals that enter the
There's special crashes to do with things.
Yeah.
And some of them are pretty damn hard to get.
Takedowns are great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I still don't have that special takedown in the San Francisco map. God damn it!
Which one is that?
Is that the 2 trams?
That's the one into a tram.
Oh, it's 2 trams, isn't it?
I got the 2 trams one because that's the one that's in the snow level.
Yeah, it's in Winter Park.
The San Francisco one where you got to get one takedown into a tram.
That's the one where you only pass one tram, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like impossible to do if you miss that.
Well, yeah, I don't have for some reason I don't have the snowplow one still. As it's just one of those ones that I don't have. I have the snowplow one. I don't have the speedboat one because the speedboat only goes one direction on that one place, and it's not always in that same place.
I got more takedowns in that game not trying to get the takedowns than when I was trying to get them. So.
I got like 2,500 takedowns in that game just without those 2 things.
In fact, we'd almost completed them all on John's before his Xbox died, and we had to start the game all over again.
And then it was like the weird thing. The ones that we got by accident were the ones we could never get in the first one. And the ones I'm waiting for, I just got before on the other one.
Yeah.
Despite trying for literally days to get some of this.
Yep.
All right. So next we're going to go into our game reviews, and I will start with a not really a remake, but kind of a rehash of a PlayStation 1 game, I'm going to talk about Valkyrie Profile Lenneth. Now, this is a role-playing game by our good friends at Square Enix, and done by
Squeenix.
Yes, and done by a cult RPG developer by the name of Tri-Ace, who's also worked on Radiata Stories and Star Ocean. So, in a nutshell, what the story is on Valkyrie Profile Lenneth is that you play as Lenneth, a normal, average girl, and what happens is that...
then a tentacle comes out of nowhere.
Well, no. What happens in this story, and unfortunately I can't give away too much because it'll give away a huge spoiler, but basically she becomes a Valkyrie under Odin, and this follows Norse mythology kind of loosely, but the whole premise of the game is that you have to gather souls for the Einherjar and prepare for Ragnarok.
So if you've played Valkyrie Profile on the original PS1, is it really worth getting this?
Okay.
That was my big question.
Okay, here's what's going on with this. The game itself, between the PS1 and the PSP version, is basically the same game. So as far as the core game itself, same game. So not a lot of difference.
Just a portable version.
It's not a 100% port. That's the thing.
Okay.
They did change a couple things. The first thing is that, well, it's one disc as opposed to two. But granted, the PSP larger capacity than normal CD.
Well, it's a small size. It's like an 80 millimeter DVD. So it stores like 1.8 gigs.
Yeah. So the next thing is that the original Valkyrie Profile had an anime opening. This Valkyrie Profile has all rendered graphics, and there's rendered cutscenes in the game.
All right,
so that is
two positives
different.
there.
The next is that they rewrote some of the story so that it would fit more when the sequel to the game, Valkyrie Profile Silmeria, comes out later this year. So they actually re-released the game to get people to become familiar with the Valkyrie Profile storyline just in time for the sequel.
So it's not really a rehash, technically. It's actually a revision that improves upon
It's revision, but it's the same
most of the
graphics,
things.
same gameplay. The core game is the same.
Yeah.
The core game hasn't changed.
But everything they changed was to the positive, really, though.
For the most part. I mean, you look at the sprite graphics and you look at like some of the rendered cutscenes, and you look at it, it looks a little out of place. And then...
Final Fantasy VII did get us used to Squee doing that.
Yeah. But, I mean, they're well done, but they're not really necessary to moving the plot. They're just like, oh, well, here's a character turning into a dragon. Well, that's real nice, and it looks real cool, but it doesn't really do anything to the game. It's just kind of, oh, okay.
It's more like they're filling their quota for having to add a CG in, yeah.
They're filling a CG quota. Now, the one thing I did like about what they did with Valkyrie Profile is that they did enhance a lot of the graphics for 16:9. So they did edit a few of the graphics so that it would take advantage of the widescreen.
So another bonus. Okay,
So if you've never played Valkyrie Profile before, it is definitely worth picking up. It is a very solid RPG. The battle system is a lot of fun, and there's a lot to the game. If you own the PlayStation 1 version and want something portable, you might want to pass on it only because that type of role-playing game, not the best type of game for a portable system, as it could take you anywhere from 1.5 to 2 hours before you get a save point.
but it's a good RPG just to have.
Oh, it's a very solid RPG. It's a very well done
And it's something the PSP definitely needs is a more solid RPG.
Yeah. Another thing is that there were complaints online about the load time. The load time on the PSP was pretty decent. It's only loading sprite, so it didn't have a lot to load. The PSP version fares about the same, so it's going to be about the same load time. Some of it is a little longer than it
due
should
to CG.
be. Not necessarily the CG, but I think it's just a matter of just getting like all the sprites and all the animations ready to go. And for some reason, the PSP, on a couple battles, you're wondering, okay, now. The battles take a little bit longer than I think they should take to load.
And you do get a load delay before every battle.
It's not. It
That's
is
like a second or two, but it's there, right?
Yeah, it is. It is.
That's
a slight
bearable
delay.
if it loads all that stuff ahead of time.
But the thing is, those things add up.
Yeah.
You know, you talk about like maybe a second or two, but then
5 hours into the game, there's another 20 minutes gone. Yeah.
But if you've never played Valkyrie Profile, buy it. Very solid RPG. Story is kind of confusing because it sounds like some, intern decided to translate the game and just learned Japanese like a week ago. So some of it is very stiff and kind of confusing. And some of the characters' motivations, you're like, well, that doesn't really make a lot of sense why they would do that. But
probably written by Loki.
So it's a perfect translation of Japanese then.
Yeah. So in the end, if you've ever played Valkyrie Profile, I would say 3 out of 5 because if you played the game, you know what to expect. But if you really really like the game and want something portable, go ahead and pick it up. But for those who've never played the game, I would give it like a 4 out of 5. Pick it up. It's definitely a nice, solid RPG, and that's something that the PSP really needs.
So how long does it take to beat it?
An average game of Valkyrie Profile, depending on what level you play it on, can take anywhere between 50 to 60 hours. So it is a very lengthy game, and you can make it longer depending on how much you want to build up your characters.
Or how many items you accumulate, or...
Well, yeah, you have to remember in Valkyrie Profile, you have a rating with Odin, and as you get items or send your warriors to Asgard, your rating can either increase or decrease. And the rating, called your seal rating, actually determines which one of the 3 endings you get in the game.
So multiple endings. So definitely a worthy purchase.
Okay. So next we have Brian, and he will be doing a Prince of Persia game.
Persia. This was an interesting game. I definitely looked forward to this just for the uniqueness of it because there's so few turn-based games out there and even fewer CCG games, for that matter, on portables. This being a combination of the two enticed me to get it even more. It basically takes the Prince of Persia story, and I guess it falls somewhere between the first 2 Prince of Persias, so it's in between that kind of ties up some of the loose ends and kind of keeps within the storyline, which is another bonus. Not really a side story, so that's good. This is, it's really right up there. When I talk turn-based, I think of Advanced Wars. What was that other one on the PSP?
Field Commander?
Field Commander, yeah. Same kind of scenario. Turn-based is really fun in the sense of it's real strategic. You move units to where you think you want to move them, where you want to attack, where you get the bonuses from terrain, or where your units are going to be more beneficial. Prince of Persia basically is you, the prince, moving your army into India and other lands, conquering those lands to increase your army size, to achieve other goals, to appease your father, and one day become the king of, bump up from prince to king, so to speak. But the interesting thing is they take this turn-based strategy and they allow you to draw cards before you go into battle. So each round that you play is broken into hours, and in an hour you have as many rounds as you have cards to use. So you have a certain number of cards you can use. Once you play a card before you go in and battle. So this card says, say, a 2, 3, or 4 on it. If it's 2, then you can use 2 of your units to battle or move. So you take your card, you move it into use this card slot. You go pick your 2 units you want to move, and it shows you on the board where you can physically move them via your stylus. It's really a heavy stylus game. That's another interesting point about it. Move your unit, you attack, or you just move. Boom, now it goes over. You tell it you're done. You've moved your 2 units. The computer takes over, or your second player takes over. They do their round, and you go through until one of you has no more cards, and you say pass. Then it goes to the next person. They have no more cards. They pass. So when both players pass, boom, that's the end of your hour, and you start another hour. And you go through this whole thing until you've reached your agenda or how many points you had to get, or you've conquered the other king.
Are the hours actual hours?
No. It's not real time. That's the nice thing. It goes really quickly once you learn the game. The game's got a heavy learning curve. That's the only downside. If you've never played a turn-based game or you haven't played CCG, mind you, this is not Magic the Gathering CCG. It's real simple CCG, and it allows you it kind of just makes a turn-based game a little more exciting, basically. I think it was a fun game. It was definitely worth the price. I mean, I found it at Best Buy, unsurprising to me, for $9.99, so I was definitely picking it up for that reason alone. But I'd also seen
this game for $10, huh?
Yeah, this was kind of surprising. Obviously it just did not sell well when it initially came out, and it didn't reach the crowds they thought it would.
Well, or maybe some sales guy said, "DS, oh, those are gone now, right?" Well,
don't. Yeah, that guy just lost his job.
They don't make any more of those.
Exactly.
And I can see how it might have missed its mark in the sense that the original Prince of Persia games were action games. They just had nothing to do. And here's this one that takes a total 360 and goes into a strategy and a card game. I mean, so.
Question, Brian. With the hour system, is there any advantage? Well, first of all, is there a limited amount of hours for the whole game, or is it like
no?
Okay, so you can
no
take
limit.
as long or short as possible.
It really depends on how many cards you have and how you play those cards.
And is there any advantage of completing a mission in less hours than it would be for you to take your time? Is there any...
No, there's no real strategy there.
Okay.
It's just it's like any turn-based game. You pretty much have as much time as you want to do things the correct way.
So basically, hours is just a way to break up turns.
Yeah, let me give you an example. If you say you're on the lowland, you attack a guy on the highland, and you're using your ground units, and he's using his cavalry. Obviously, his cavalry is going to have the advantage because they're on horseback. You guys are running, and they're on the high ground. You're on the low ground, so they're attacking. They've got that advantage too. So if you do stupid little things like that, and there's that little bit of learning curve in the game in the beginning. It doesn't explain everything it needs to, unfortunately, but you kind of learn as you go along, and it's not that hard once you figure out those little things. And you can read the cards before you go into battle. You can also read your opponent when you're in battle, so you really don't have to make those mistakes, but it's always good to make a few and see that. Now, assuming you don't make those mistakes, you go through the game fairly quickly. So it's not like some sort of RPG where you've got to spend your maximum or minimum 30 hours, rather. You can go through this game fairly quickly. And you can play head-to-head with somebody else wirelessly. It doesn't have a game-sharing ability, but it does have a hot seat ability, so you can play with somebody else on the same system. So it really takes care of all the loose ends there.
All right, well, it'd be something to definitely try.
I would give it probably, for most people that haven't played it, aren't into this, like a 3.5. But if you've played a turn-based game and you really like CCGs, I'd say it's an easy 4.25, say. And I don't know, 4.5 in that sense. I mean, for the price, you can't go.
We're becoming like IGN with our rating system.
I blame it on Steve. No, but definitely for the price, good game to take.
Yeah, for $10.
And I mean, hey, I don't give kudos to Best Buy often, but this is one of the few times where I'd say go pick it up.
But is there a rape and pillage card?
I haven't found one yet. I haven't completed enough missions to get that card if it is there.
I don't know.
Is there a card in Prince of Persia to denounce Buddhism?
Yeah, maybe. Well, when you were saying that, you guys, you got your cavalry and you got your foot soldiers, and all I could think of was the dude on 4chan with the picture that says, "And I'm firing my laser."
All right.
No checking here. So does it have anything to do with the Prince of Persia games? I mean, is there any time control or any of that?
Supposedly things happen within the story where it tells you he went back and did this and changed things, but you don't do it physically, no.
You can't use time to go back a turn, right?
No, but it does. Yeah, you don't have that ability yourself, but it does tie between the two games. So it's not, like I said, it's not a side story. It does kind of fill in some things that you didn't know. So it's kind of fun to play in that sense too.
Is it between the first and second game then?
Yeah.
Okay.
You're not. You can't be like. You can't play the 4-year-old card where you're like going, "No, I don't want you to do that." That's the time. Yeah.
Okay. So next we have John doing a dirty, filthy PC game.
Ooh.
I thought that was a filthy, dirty PC game.
It's a PC game that's filthy and dirty.
Hey, it could be worse. It could be a Mac game.
Ooh.
Could be.
Wait.
That's
There's
just
no
nasty.
games on a Mac.
Well, what about that game that gets packed in? Was it Solitaire?
That's that little Apple slidey puzzle.
I thought that was like freeware.
No, it's that snail game. Oh, wait, no, that's Master System.
Anyways.
So, anyway, this game is called Drill Milky Punch, which we discovered because Steve has a habit of buying weird magazines.
Import video game magazines from England, apparently.
Yeah, which one was that?
You
This was in Hardcore Gamer magazine.
Yeah, which was a pretty cool magazine.
It was
very full color.
For this old
I don't think I've seen
Dojin
another
Soft
episode of it yet. They must import it like once a year or something.
It's so hardcore, they don't do it that often.
Well, it
handle
scares the vendors.
Actually, I don't think this one was actually Dojin Soft, but it looks like it. As in, it was commercially released in Japan.
Should we explain what
a
Dojin
long
Soft
time
is?
ago.
Well, I think what the deal was, the point of that particular section in the magazine wasn't that these are currently Dojin Softs, but they were more, these are examples of games that were Dojins that have varying amounts of commercial success now.
Go ahead and explain what a Dojin is, Chris.
Yes, a Dojin game is basically, it stems from Dojinshi, but all it is it is a game that is created not by a company, but rather an individual or a group of individuals. So
it's an amateur thing.
Amateur.
Which in this case, in several of the examples, are being
basic
redistributed
freeware out there,
by actual commercial entities.
This is one of the few freeware ideas that got picked up and actually put on a major console. Or in this case, was actually gamed.
Well, the game is called Drill Milky Punch, and it inherits a bunch of characters from a dating game that none of us have ever played. But those characters tie in, and you get to see them all again if anybody ever actually played the game that was based off of, I'm sure there's some people in Japan that have.
Yeah, somewhere,
undoubtedly.
Or maybe Piro played it or something.
But Drill Milky Punch is a game that, well, if you ever wanted to punch somebody in the face and hit them so hard that not just they fell down, but all their friends and their family fell down too.
You smacked family back in time down.
That's pretty much what this game is going for. It's a really simple idea. You have to pick a character. There's like 6 of them, and they have different weapons, basically, and slightly different statistics. Some of them attack faster. One of them has like a ranged weapon. One moves faster. Very minor differences. And you end up tossed on a playing field with a timer ticking down, and stuff comes at you. Some of it makes more sense than others. Probably more if you've played the game that it's based on.
Perhaps.
There's like school kids, and there's weird elephant ghost things, and there's flame-spitting plants, and there's fish, and it's kind of weird. But what you do then is they all come at you in the center of the board. And you run up to them and, punch them or kick them, and they fall down. But when they go ahead and fall down, if they hit somebody else, they'll make them fall down too. So the goal of the game is to cause chain reactions where you have large numbers of people fall down. There are occasionally bosses who have mastered the arcane Eastern martial art of standing back up. And you might have to knock down multiple times.
You gotta be a black belt for that skill.
But the challenge for the game comes in that they'll throw massive numbers of enemies at you, and there are a reasonable number of them, especially the flame-spitting plants and the aliens that shoot at you. And there'll be like 1,000 guys on screen at once. And you have to keep trying to knock enough of them down to get clear space to stay alive and dodging the shots that are coming in at you.
Sounds like the Bangayo of fighters.
Actually, I'm kind of curious now. I haven't played this one yet because it's still sitting in my car. But is this thing play more like Robotron, or does it play more like Gauntlet?
More like Gauntlet. You've got a single 8-way control for the direction you're running in, and when you attack in the direction you're facing.
So Japanese schoolgirl needs food badly.
Yes.
Dynasty Warriors and
actually does need food badly, because if you can hit people hard enough and make them bounce off the edges of the screen, they drop food, which gives you bonus points.
Just like real Japan.
Wow, if you hit them hard enough into the wall, they'll crap food.
This reminds me a lot of grade school.
Give me your lunch money. Ow! Hey, you just dropped it.
They give you a couple of attack options for the game. You get a stun attack that'll make people dizzy for a little bit, and you can use that to set up larger combos because it'll freeze people in place. You've got a normal attack, and you've got a charged up attack, which throws people much further than normal. So very often you'll end up stunning somebody, then you'll run around for a little bit building up the charge, and then you'll knock people into the stunned group. And that'll sort of give you double points for doing it all.
I see.
This is just, it's an insane game. It's all of these cute little characters. You're like just punching, pushing, everybody's falling down and disappearing. There's way too much going on screen the whole time. I've managed to survive for almost 6 minutes, and that's the point where it gets so crazy, I can't make it any further.
It's like being surrounded by geriatric zombies.
What?
It's definitely a high score kind of game, so it can be as much fun as you want to put into it, really. However much challenge you get out of aiming for that high score. The game's pretty old. I think it came out in like 2000 or 2001 or something. So
oh my God, that's ancient.
Yeah, so it'll run on
it falls into
almost
my
any
category
computer that's still running.
We're lucky Steve didn't do a review.
Yeah, well, I might have had I not forgotten it in my car for a week.
Hard to find here in the U.S. There is a translation of it that you can find a torrent file for, though of course the copy I have is totally legitimate and paid for. Yes.
Hint, hint, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. If you know what I mean.
Yes.
Please don't sue us.
Him.
Yeah.
If you modded your systems, we would be able to play it without a problem.
How do you mod that PC?
Well, apparently, from what I can tell, you put neon track lights in it.
Yeah.
Does it take
you put a Type R logo on the side of your case.
Does it take a number 2 pencil?
It does.
So what would
This is a crazy, fun little game. It doesn't have a whole lot of depth to it, but sure is fun while you're playing it.
Okay. So rating?
Oh, 4 out of 5 for an hour's worth of fun.
Soul American.
Okay.
Or whoever else gets a copy of it.
All right. So that's it for our podcast. Is there anything else that we want?
It's over?
Yes, for now.
Oh.
I'm sure I'll be getting many letters on my poor Norse mythology skills.
Thanks. Join us next time when Stanley Spadowski is hosting the show. We can drink from the fire hose.
Yes.
With our melty drink punch.
Or something. We're going to teach poodles how to fly, too.
A show note, we are going to be doing a blooper reel in the near future, so watch for that on our website.
Yeah, we're actually going to sell the reel, but you're going to have to find a reel-to-reel player to use it.
But you're not going to have any bloopers, because we don't make any mistakes.
We don't.
That's why we get letters every day from the same viewer, same listener. It's like,
gotcha!
Yeah.
This is why you suck this week.
I used to get those back when I wrote a Ranma fan fiction. I actually got a guy who wrote me a 17-page email about how my attacks I was writing for Ranma were wrong.
Well, that's what you get for writing for Ranma.
Was that email longer than your fan
It was
fiction?
longer than the fan fiction was. So it's like, okay.
Yes.
Right.
Not that we don't appreciate it, Keegan. Thank you.
Ranma successor.
Yeah, I actually, if it would be
makes us
possible,
feel...
I would love to get Keegan on the podcast one time, as he has done the Neo Geo shooting special, and he's working on the Dreamcast shooting special.
Big kudos to that. Very cool.
Plus, people writing
I don't know how.
Join the madness.
People writing emails to us makes us feel like we're not shooting these bits out into space to be wasted.
Yes.
At least not immediately.
Yes, we need to power it up.
Or force space invaders.
Yes.
Anyway, that is it for Diehard Gamer Radio. As always, you can listen to us at diehardgamerradio.com. You can also listen to us at allpodcast.com and podcastalley.com. So anyway, you have once again been listening to 4 guys who know a lot about games and not much else.